They laughed at her dress. 14-year-old Nia Carter walked into the biggest summer fair in Willow Creek wearing a faded yellow dress, patched at the hem, repaired at the sleeves, and older than some of the girls mocking her. Isn't that the same dress she wore last year? My grandmother has curtains newer than that. Nia heard every word. She wanted to disappear, but her mother leaned close and told her, "Give them something worth staring at." So Nia entered the town's biggest riding competition. And the second she grabbed the reins, everything changed. The quiet girl everyone had been laughing at suddenly rode, like she'd been born in the saddle. The entire crowd went silent. But one man was watching more closely than anyone else. Isaiah Cole, a millionaire cowboy. Because there was something about the way Nia rode that he recognized. He walked over to her mother and asked one question. "Who taught your daughter to ride?" "Her father, Marcus Carter." Isaiah froze. Because 17 years earlier, Marcus Carter had done something for him that he had never forgotten. And what Isaiah did next would change Nia's life forever. The morning sun poured over the dusty fields of Willow Creek, Texas, turning the grass gold beneath a wide blue sky. It was the biggest day of the year in the small black ranching community, the Willow Creek Summer Fair. Families arrived in pickup trucks and on horseback. Barbecue smoke drifted through the warm air. Children chased one another between wooden stalls while a local band played blues and country music beneath an open pavilion. Among the crowd walked 14-year-old Nia Carter. Nia was a quiet black girl with warm brown skin and long braids her mother had carefully tied with blue ribbons that morning. But people weren't looking at her braids. They were looking at her dress. It was pale yellow, faded almost white in places. The sleeves had been repaired twice, and a tiny patch near the hem had been sewn so carefully that only someone looking closely would notice. Unfortunately, some people were looking very closely. 3 girls standing near the lemonade stand whispered to each other. Then one laughed. "Isn't it the same dress she wore last year?" Another girl covered her mouth. "My grandmother has curtains newer than that." They burst into laughter. Nia heard every word. She lowered her eyes and kept walking. Her mother, Denise Carter, was several steps behind her carrying a basket of homemade peach pies to sell. Denise had become a widow 3 years earlier. Her husband, Marcus, had been a hard-working ranch hand known throughout Willow Creek. After his death, Denise worked wherever she could, cleaning houses, baking pies, mending clothes. There wasn't much money left after rent, groceries, and school expenses. But she had refused to let hardship make her daughter ashamed. That morning, when Nia had put on the yellow dress, Denise had smiled. "You look beautiful." Nia had looked at herself in the mirror. "You really think so?" "I don't think so," Denise said. "I know so." Now, standing in the middle of the fair while people laughed, Nia wasn't so sure. "Nia!" One of the girls called loudly. Nia stopped. "Where'd you buy that dress?" The girl's friends started giggling before Nia could answer. "Leave her alone," Denise said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried enough strength to silence them for a moment. Denise walked to her daughter and put a hand on her shoulder. "Come help me with the pies." Nia nodded. Neither of them noticed the tall man standing beside the horse arena. But he had noticed them. His name was Isaiah Cole. Nearly everyone in that part of Texas knew the name. Isaiah was a 42-year-old black rancher who owned Coal River Ranch, thousands of acres of cattle land stretching beyond the hills outside town. He had built a fortune through ranching, livestock breeding, and agricultural investments. Some newspapers called him the Millionaire Cowboy. But Isaiah didn't care much for the nickname. That afternoon, he wore dusty boots, jeans, and a plain white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. And beside him stood his 12-year-old daughter, Amara. "Daddy," Amara whispered. Isaiah looked down. Those girls are being mean." "I saw." "Are you going to do something?" Isaiah watched Nia helping her mother arrange pies on a folding table. "No," he said. Amara frowned. Then Isaiah added, "Not yet." A few hours later, the fair's main event began. The announcer climbed onto the wooden stage. "Everybody gather around. It's time for the Willow Creek Young Riders Scholarship Competition." Nia froze. This was why she had come. The winner would receive $5,000 towards school expenses and riding training. Nia loved horses. Her father had taught her to ride before she could properly reach the stirrups. After he died, she rarely had the chance. But she had practiced whenever neighboring ranchers allowed her to help with their horses. Denise squeezed her hand. Go. Nia looked down at her dress. Mom, everybody's staring at me. Then give them something worth staring at. Nia smiled slightly. She walked toward the arena. And that's when the laughter started again. One girl whispered loudly, "She's entering dressed like that?" Nia's cheeks burned, but she climbed onto the horse assigned to her. The moment her hands touched the reins, everything changed. Her shoulders straightened. Her fear disappeared. The gate opened. Nia rode. She guided the horse around barrels with astonishing control, leaned smoothly into the turns, and crossed the finish line beneath the blazing afternoon sun. The crowd erupted. Even the girls who had laughed were silent. Isaiah Cole slowly removed his cowboy hat, because he recognized something in Nia's riding, something he hadn't seen in years. He turned toward Denise. "Ma'am," he said, "who taught your daughter to ride?" Denise looked at him. Her father. Isaiah's expression changed. What was his name? Marcus Carter. Isaiah went completely still. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he looked toward Nia. And suddenly, the millionaire cowboy understood exactly whose daughter was standing in that arena. Marcus Carter? Isaiah repeated the name quietly. Denise nodded. "You knew my husband?" Isaiah looked across the arena at Nia. "I did more than know him." Before Denise could ask another question, the announcer called the competitors back. The results were ready. Nia stood beside 6 other riders beneath the afternoon sunshine. In third place, applause. In second place, more applause. Nia swallowed. Then the announcer smiled. And this year's Willow Creek Young Riders Scholarship winner is Nia Carter. For 1 second, Nia couldn't move. Then Denise screamed, "That's my baby." The crowd cheered. Nia covered her mouth with both hands. Tears filled her eyes. She had won. The same girls who had mocked her dress watched as the scholarship ribbon was placed around her neck. But Isaiah wasn't watching them. He was staring at the yellow dress. He recognized that too. After the ceremony, he approached Nia and Denise. "Nia," he said, "congratulations." "Thank you, sir. You ride like your father." Nia's smile disappeared. "You knew him?" Isaiah nodded. "Your father once saved everything I had." Denise stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Isaiah looked toward a large oak tree away from the crowd. "May I tell you something?" They walked into its shade while Amara followed. Isaiah removed his hat. 17 years ago, I wasn't rich." He pointed toward the distant hills. "I had 40 acres, 12 cattle, an old truck, and more debt than sense." Denise listened silently. "One summer, a wildfire started near my property. I was trying to move the horses when I got trapped." Isaiah paused. "Marcus came back for me." Nia's eyes widened. "He rode through smoke so thick you couldn't see 10 feet ahead. He got me onto his horse and let us out." Isaiah looked down. But that wasn't all. After the fire, Isaiah had nearly lost his ranch. Marcus had quietly convinced several local ranchers to lend him equipment and livestock until he could recover. Isaiah rebuilt. The 40 acres became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. And over the years, Isaiah became one of the wealthiest black ranchers in the state. "I tried to repay Marcus," Isaiah said. Denise gave a sad smile. "I already know what he probably said." Isaiah smiled too. "He told me, if you ever get the chance, help somebody else." Nia wiped a tear from her cheek. Isaiah looked at her dress again. "There's something else." Denise followed his eyes. "The dress?" "Yes." Denise touched the faded yellow fabric. "It belonged to me." Nia looked surprised. "You never told me that." "I wore it the summer I met your father." Denise smiled. "Your grandmother made it by hand." Nia stared down at the dress people had laughed at all afternoon. Suddenly, it didn't seem old. It seemed priceless. Amara stepped closer. "I think it's beautiful." Nia smiled at her. "Thanks." But Isaiah had become unusually quiet. Then he looked toward the stage. An idea had entered his mind. "Excuse me." He walked away. "Where's he going?" Nia asked. Denise shook her head. "I have no idea." 10 minutes later, the announcer climbed onto the stage again. "Ladies and gentlemen, before today's fair continues, Mr. Isaiah Cole would like to say something." People gathered. Isaiah stepped onto the wooden platform. Nia stood beside her mother near the back. Isaiah took the microphone. "I wasn't planning to speak today." The crowd quieted. "But sometimes life puts something in front of you that you shouldn't ignore." He looked directly toward Nia. "Today, I watched people laugh at a young woman because her clothes weren't expensive." The 3 girls near the lemonade stand stopped smiling. Isaiah continued. "I've attended dinners where people wore suits worth more than my first truck." A few people chuckled. "But money has never impressed me much." He pointed toward Nia. "Courage does." The crowd turned toward her. "Hard work does." Nia's eyes filled with tears. "And remembering where you came from does." Then Isaiah said something that made Denise cover her mouth. "The man whose daughter you're looking at today helped save my life." Gasps spread through the crowd. "Marcus Carter was my friend." Isaiah paused. "And I have owed that man a debt for 17 years. Denise shook her head. "Isaiah." But he wasn't finished. "I can't repay Marcus." He looked at Nia. "But maybe I can honor him." Then the millionaire cowboy reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. The entire fairgrounds became silent. Isaiah stepped down from the stage and walked through the crowd, straight toward Nia. People moved aside. When he reached her, he didn't hand her money. He didn't pull out a giant check. Instead, he handed her the envelope. Nia opened it. Inside was a photograph. She stared at it. 2 young black cowboys stood beside a wooden fence, covered in dust and smiling at the camera. One was Isaiah. The other was her father. Nia's hands began trembling. "My dad." "Turn it over," Isaiah said. She did. Written on the back in faded ink were words from Marcus. "A man's success isn't measured by what he owns. It's measured by who stands taller because he was here." Nia pressed the photograph against her chest. Denise began crying. Isaiah looked toward the crowd. Then he made his announcement. "Starting today, Coal River Ranch is creating the Marcus Carter Young Riders Foundation." People gasped. The foundation will pay for riding lessons, equipment, competition fees, and scholarships for children in this community whose families can't afford them. Applause exploded across the fairgrounds. But Isaiah raised his hand. "And the first full scholarship goes to Nia Carter." Nia stared at him. "What?" "Training, school expenses, competition fees, everything through high school." Nia couldn't speak. Isaiah smiled. "If you want it." She threw her arms around her mother. "Yes." The crowd cheered again. Then something unexpected happened. Isaiah turned toward the 3 girls who had laughed at Nia earlier. They immediately looked at the ground. "Young ladies." They slowly looked up. Isaiah didn't embarrass them. He didn't insult them. Instead, he asked, "Do you know what the most valuable piece of clothing at this fair is?" Nobody answered. Isaiah pointed toward Nia's faded yellow dress. "That one." The girls looked confused. That dress was handmade by Nia's grandmother. Her mother wore it when she met Nia's father. And today, his daughter wore it while winning a scholarship. He paused. "You saw something old." Isaiah looked around at everyone. "I see 3 generations of a family refusing to quit." Silence. Then applause began. First from one person, then another. Soon, nearly everyone was clapping. Nia stood beneath the bright afternoon sun wearing the same faded dress that had embarrassed her only hours earlier. But now she stood differently. Her shoulders were back. Her chin was high. One of the girls who had mocked her approached. Her name was Jasmine. "Hey, Nia." Nia looked at her. Jasmine struggled to meet her eyes. "I'm sorry about what I said." Nia didn't answer immediately. Then she nodded. "Okay." Jasmine glanced at the dress. "I didn't know." Nia smiled gently. "You shouldn't have needed to." Jasmine's face changed. Because she understood. A person's worth shouldn't depend on whether strangers know the story behind what they're wearing. Later that afternoon, Nia returned to the riding arena. The Texas sun remained high above the ranch. Isaiah leaned against the fence while Denise stood nearby. "You really didn't have to do all this," Denise said. Isaiah watched Nia riding beside Amara. "Yes, I did. Marcus never expected repayment." "I know." Isaiah smiled. "That's why it mattered." Across the arena, Nia laughed as her horse broke into a gentle gallop. For the first time in years, Denise heard something in her daughter's laughter that reminded her of Marcus. Freedom, hope, a future. Years later, photographs from that afternoon would hang inside the entrance of the Marcus Carter Young Riders Foundation. Hundreds of children would eventually pass through its doors. Some became competitive riders. Some went to college. Some became ranchers. And one became particularly famous, Nia Carter. At 27, she purchased her own ranch. At its grand opening, reporters gathered around her. They asked about her success, her championships, her education, her partnership with Isaiah Cole. But one reporter noticed something unusual framed behind Nia's desk. An old yellow dress. Faded, patched, carefully preserved behind glass. "Why keep that?" the reporter asked. Nia looked at it for a long moment. "Because once, people laughed at me for wearing it." The reporter waited. Nia smiled. "And that was the day I learned something I've never forgotten." "What?" Nia walked toward the window. Outside, young black boys and girls were learning to ride beneath the bright afternoon sun. Never let somebody else's opinion make you ashamed of the sacrifices that carried your family forward. She looked back at the dress. "My grandmother made that dress when she didn't have much money. My mother preserved it when she had even less. And my father taught me that what you give to people can live longer than you do." Outside, a little girl climbed onto a horse for the first time. Nia stepped onto the porch. "You ready?" she called. The girl nervously nodded. Nia smiled. "Then keep your eyes forward." The horse began walking. And beneath the golden Texas sun, Nia watched another child begin her journey. Because 17 years earlier, Marcus Carter had saved a struggling cowboy without asking for anything in return. Years later, that cowboy had kept the kindness moving. And the faded yellow dress everyone had laughed at? It became the most treasured thing Nia owned. Not because it was expensive, but because some things are worth far more than money. They carry the people who loved us.